of the President of the Republic of South Africa, President Jacob Zuma, which is to begin at any moment now, and we expect him to take to the podium in a short while. His speech will be followed by a discussion of one of the key themes at this year's conference: the struggle for rights and freedoms, strengthening representative democracy and gaining new democracies in the world. Later this morning, the Congress is also to debate a common road to peace, sustainability and cooperation, and with that, the need to secure multilateralism. The conference ends tomorrow, when it will be looking at a new internationalism and a new culture of solidarity among people and between nations. While we are waiting for the President to take to the podium, let's take a look at what has happened so far at the Congress. The opening address was delivered by Deputy President Kgalema Motlanthe, standing in for the President, who was still in Botswana on business. In his address, the Deputy President said the need for this Congress was urgent because of the global economic crisis. He called on the Congress to address a number of concerns, to define the role of the Socialist Internationalists at this point in time, and define what it means to be an international movement for freedom, social justice and solidarity in the realities of the world. Motlanthe said the Congress should also reflect how its ideological posture could assist it to attract a broader range of left, progressive and social forces to its ranks, so that it is able to unite progressive forces into an effective instrument for social change in the world. It must also look at key reforms that will enable the Socialist International to become the vibrant progressive agent for change. He also called for greater recognition of women and youth unions, and to deliberate on the transformation of the United Nations. Well, the transformation of the United Nations has been a thorny issue for in the global politics. Well, as we indicated earlier on, we're still waiting on the President to take to the podium. But as we indicated earlier on, one of the highlights will be the address by the President, which is expected to begin at any moment now. And one of the themes that will be discussed immediately after the President's address is the struggle for rights and freedoms, strengthening representative democracy and gaining new democracies in the world. Later this morning, the Congress is also expected to debate under the theme Common Road to Peace, Sustainability and Cooperation. And with that, they will be looking at ways to secure multilateralism. This conference is expected to end tomorrow. And whilst we're waiting on the President, let's just recap again on the address by the Deputy President yesterday, Deputy President Kgalema Motlanthe, who stood in for the President, who was still occupied in Botswana. In that address yesterday, the Deputy President said the need for this Congress was urgent because of the global economic situation. He called on the Congress to address a number of concerns, and one of those was to define the role of the Socialist Internationalists at this point in time, and to define what it means to be an international movement for freedom, social justice and solidarity in the realities of the world. Deputy President Kgalema Motlanthe said the Congress should also reflect how its ideological posture could assist it to attract a broader range of left, progressive and social forces to its ranks. Yes, it was indicated earlier in our report here that this movement has been growing, doubling its membership, and that is what Deputy President Motlanthe encouraged yesterday, so that it is able to unite progressive forces into an effective instrument for social change in the world. It must also look at key reforms that will enable the Socialist International to become the vibrant progressive agent for change. The Deputy President also called for greater recognition of women and youth unions. And I may just perhaps indicate that as this conference is taking place at the Convention Center in Cape Town, just around the corner we are having the Women's Parliament, which is also discussing issues that affect women, and in our country, women especially in rural areas. And the Deputy President also called on the Congress to deliberate on the transformation of the United Nations, a very sticky issue for countries which are playing a leading role in international politics. Well, South Africa and the African continent has been calling for those changes. And those are the changes, some of the things that the Deputy President called on Congress to look into as we prepare for the conference that will continue until tomorrow. It looks like proceedings are just about to begin, and the President will be introduced to conference by the President of the Socialist International, George Papandreou. And George Papandreou is the former Prime Minister of Greece. And he will be making the introduction and to call on the President of the Republic of South Africa to take to the podium for his address as Congress goes into its second day for deliberations. And it is expected to continue until tomorrow. And on the podium right now as we're speaking is the President of the Socialist International, George Papandreou.
Our cooperation, our families' cooperation at the global level around issues of the global financial crisis, and particularly how we can coordinate in order to influence important decisions concerning the G20, but also how we will work closely for Africa, and Africa being a very vigorous and strong area of development with great future. I would like to thank President Zuma and the ANC for their beautiful hospitality in this wonderful place. And it is an honor for us to be with you, President, this year, at this time, when you are celebrating, and with you we are celebrating as a movement, the 100 years, the 100th anniversary of the ANC. The ANC was and is an inspiration, as of course inspiration for all of us is Nelson Mandela. It's a part of our legacy, it's part of our tradition, and it's inspiring us for today's and future struggles. We have all confidence in the role that South Africa is playing, and we are very honored that the ANC is at the helm, and you also, President Zuma. I give you the floor.
Thank you very much for the opportunity. The President of the Socialist International, Comrade Papandreou, Secretary General of the Socialist International, Comrade Ayala, and I must congratulate you and all those who were re-elected into the new positions. We really appreciate the continuity as well. Heads of states and government and leaders of the Socialist International members countries, delegates from various organizations aligned to the Socialist International, the diplomatic corps, distinguished participants, comrades and friends, we extend a warm and revolutionary welcome to South Africa, to all comrades and friends in this 24th Congress of the Socialist International. As Deputy President Kgalema Motlanthe pointed out when he welcomed you on our behalf yesterday, South Africa is honored to host this Congress, which brings together the progressive forces from around the world. The ANC regards the Socialist International as a crucial forum for the mobilization of the world progressive movement around issues of a better Africa and a better world. We are particularly proud to host this event during the year that marks the centenary of the African National Congress. The ANC has been an internationalist organization since its inception. The founders of our movement recognized that the struggle of the people of South Africa was an inseparable part of the continental and global struggle against colonialism. Building on this foundation, the progressive forces of South Africa have played an active role in continental and international movements. It was this internationalist approach and outlook that contributed to the building of the global anti-apartheid movement. Many of the forces who were part of this movement joined us in January this year in Mangaung in celebration of the ANC centenary. We thank you profoundly for attending the centenary celebrations of our movement. We also extend our gratitude once again, most sincerely, to all for the solidarity with the oppressed South African masses during the struggle against colonial oppression and apartheid by many member parties of the Socialist International. As a national liberation movement in government since 1994, the ANC continues to place great emphasis on internationalism with a view to contribute to the struggle to create a better Africa and a better world. In October this year, we will be hosting an international solidarity conference, during which we will also honor our former President, Oliver Reginald Tambo, who played a major leading role to enhance and shape the ANC's international outlook and international mobilization. We look forward to seeing many of you back in South Africa for that historic conference. comrades and friends, the founders of the Socialist International formed this international union as an international movement for freedom, social justice, and solidarity. At this 24th Congress of the Socialist International, we must reflect deeply on this mission and vision against the challenges facing humanity today. We need to reflect on how to respond to global challenges effectively as the Socialist International, in line with the theme of this Congress, the new internationalism and a new culture of solidarity. The challenges we face arise in the context of the last 2 decades of globalization and its impact, especially on the developing world. At a positive level, globalization has encouraged national developmental initiatives by countries of the South. This has seen the beginning of a shift in global economic power. The success of countries such as India, China, and Brazil to become key economic players globally demonstrate the possibilities of advancing for the developing world. The world has also benefited from the introduction of new technologies and knowledge to provide solutions to many of the problems of humanity, such as health, agriculture, production, climate change, and education. Leaving the gains aside, the fact remains that 3/4 of the global population have become losers in the globalization process and are victims of deepening poverty and inequality. There are many reasons for this state of affairs. The dominant imperialist powers have historically used various means to assert their geopolitical and economic interests. On the economic front, globalization has consolidated the power of the dominant global forces, including powerful transnational corporations which control trillions of dollars around the world. At a political level, the world has also had to face the continued tendencies of powerful nations to dictate to others how they should run their affairs. Militarism is becoming a more common option whenever the world needs to resolve conflicts, causing global instability. This undermines possibilities for lasting solutions that are in the interest of the populations facing conflicts. We have seen this in Africa, with Libya being a recent case. It has happened in other parts of the globe as well. We need to find a way to make the Socialist International more effective in support of multilateralism as the best instrument in pursuit of a better world and international solidarity instead of unilateralism, which is on the rise. At a social level, we should interrogate at the gender aspects of globalization as it affects men and women differently. Firstly, across the globe, women are entering the workforces in larger numbers. However, their participation tends to be in the informal and outsourced sectors and in the caring professions. These sectors are characterized by shift work, labor flexibility, and therefore job insecurity, low wages, and poor working conditions and benefits. Thus, we see the majority of women swelling the ranks of the working poor, in addition to the unpaid and subsistence work they provide in their families and communities. A second trend is the feminization of poverty. About 70% of the world's poor are female. They are likely to stay poor and therefore adding to the cycle of intergenerational poverty. When emerging economy governments begin to privatize under pressure, women tend to suffer most. As Mary Hawksworth indicates in her book, Globalization and Feminist Activism, the reduction in the number of state employees affects women disproportionately, as they tend to be the ones working in social welfare agencies, schools, and hospitals. She points out that the parts of the state that are not negatively affected by privatization tend to be male-dominated, such as the police, military, commerce, and finances. To quote her, additionally, the loss of jobs in the formal economy tends to push women into the informal sector with low pay and no recognition, unquote. With regards to the impact of globalization on the youth, the information and communication revolution has opened a whole new, exciting world to young people. But at a much deeper level, the successive ILO global employment trends for youth reports draw attention to the worsening labor market situation of young people. One in 3 young people between the ages of 18 and 24 are unemployed. And the rate of youth unemployment remains consistent at 3 times that of the rate of adults. Young unemployed is therefore a global challenge that needs to be responded to effectively by addressing the fundamental contradictions in the capitalist system. Comrades and friends, in light of these and many other challenges, the current global situation dictates that we should emerge with radical positions, a radical agenda, and the re-characterization of the Socialist International as one of the major remaining global progressive movements. We have no choice but to review, analyze, and rethink, having taken stock of the global crisis, their impact on society, in particular to the working masses of the world. The Socialist Council meeting in Costa Rica earlier this year urged the organization to contribute towards redefining markets in a democracy in order to address the contradictions that were causing the deepening poverty and hunger. Proposals were made regarding the need to redesign the global financial architecture, especially the reform of institutions such as the World Bank and International Monetary Fund. Other measures include better regulation, the promotion of sustainable growth, and the strengthening of social protection as more crucial than ever before. These proposals need our serious attention. More importantly, we must ask the fundamental questions about how we can advance the interests of humanity through strengthening the Socialist International. A key ingredient in building the Socialist International is to foster unity and meaningful cooperation among the socialists, social democrats, and all disciplined forces of the left around the world, whether in or outside of governments. We recall that the Socialist International of the 1970s championed a shift in direction and orientation. The movement was rejuvenated and started reaching out, both organizationally and in terms of its outlook and agenda, to forces beyond the borders of Europe. It became an ally of the progressive and anti-colonial forces across the globe in their struggle for freedom from oppression and domination and for self-determination. Over the last decades, further strides have been made to expand the membership of the Socialist International in all regions of the world, including on the African continent. The organization also began engaging with North-South issues and participated actively in the struggle for the transformation of the global order. It also began to be active as a global player involved, for an example, in the resolution of the Middle East conflict, as well as in the regional integration efforts in different parts of the world. However, we must also acknowledge that there are progressive political parties and movements in the world, most notably in Latin America, Africa, and Asia, who do not see themselves as part of the family of the Socialist International. We must continue to ask the question why this is the case, but more generally, to examine the state of global progressive and left forces. It is generally acknowledged that the shifts in the global situation over the last decade or so have opened greater space for progressive alternatives. However, many amongst the broad global left have either abandoned left projects and ideas after the collapse of the many socialist countries, which included the Soviet Union, or have been slow to make use of the space and provide alternative visions. As a Socialist International, we should examine the contribution we make to this search for global progressive alternatives. We cannot be silent and allow an intellectual and moral vacuum by the absence of robust and compelling alternatives to neoliberalism. We have to build on some gains scored around the world. In Europe, socialist and social democratic parties are once again taking on the helm of government. We must ensure that this process is consolidated by providing real answers, as the progressive did after the Great Depression, to the problems their countries and the world faced. On the African continent and the Middle East, we see that even where advances are made in overthrowing authoritarian regimes, as it happened during the Arab Spring, and I've been not always sure whether it was a spring or autumn. I'm not certain, but we call it spring nevertheless. The progressive forces are often unable to ensure that these activities result in more sovereign, democratic, and people-centered forms of government and political and economic systems. What may happen without guidance from progressive forces is a degeneration into new forms of authoritarianism and reversing gains with regards to gender equality and the right to self-determination. With the Socialist International meeting in Africa, we must also reflect on how to build on the gains in Africa over the years. The progressive forces that include old national liberation forces and the new emerging progressive parties, the workers, women, youth, and other movements are growing. For an example, the ANC has grown from about 600,000 members in 2007 to more than 1 million members currently. However, the growth of progressive parties in the continent needs to be strengthened so that they take their proper place in the development of the continent within the broader goal of the African agenda. The core attributes of such a progressive agenda should in the main include consistent political freedom, modernization of African productive forces, regional integration, including through infrastructure and improvement in the socio-economic conditions of African citizens. Towards achieving these goals, the African continent is implementing the new partnership on African development called NEPAD. This includes important decisions that have been taken to expand continental agricultural production, regional integration, and infrastructure development. Based on our own analysis of the performance of progressive forces in the continent, we have seen a need to revive party-to-party relations more actively. The experience of the post-liberation period is that intergovernmental relations become the key and possibly the only form of interaction, thereby killing political content in the relations between and among African countries. Active party-to-party linkages will greatly improve our response to the challenges facing the continent. It is in the context of these challenges we face as members of the Socialist International that we should locate the ongoing debates about the form of the Socialist International in order to promote the new internationalism and a new culture of solidarity. In other words, the new kind of internationalism and new culture and solidarity must be informed by the answers to these challenges. These reforms must have the effect of broadening the base of the Socialist International and of strengthening its capacity to generate, fight for, and implement progressive ideas and a progressive agenda around the world. We extend a warm welcome again to all our distinguished guests and participants to this important conference. We sincerely thank you for hosting a Socialist International Congress in our country for the first time. We believe this will strengthen us and indeed make us feel we are really part of the progressive forces of the globe. We look forward to a fruitful engagement and exchange of ideas on many weighty issues on the agenda. The issues are very weighty, and I think the world faces very serious challenges that need progressive solutions to these difficult problems. Perhaps the Socialist International has met at the right time, when the world is seeking solutions to the challenges that seem to be with us and are going to be with us for a long time to come. I believe the solution will come here from the Socialist International, but only if it indeed lives up to the challenges. We have a responsibility to take the Socialist International to greater heights as it unites the progressive forces to deal with the challenges of a changing world. I thank you, ladies and gentlemen and comrades. Thank you very much.
Thank you, President Zuma. Thank you, President Zuma. On behalf of all the members of our family attending here, and as a token of appreciation for this very warm hospitality we have received here in Cape Town in South Africa, and in honoring the 100th anniversary of the ANC, we are bringing you a small gift. This is made of marble, Greek marble, which is the same marble, of course, which is on so many buildings and ancient temples, which symbolize the birthplace of democracy. And I thought this would be appropriate for the 100th anniversary.
Well, there you have it. We had the president of the Socialist International, George Papandreou, thanking the president for the address that he had. But to look at how the conference has been going on since yesterday and up until now, we are joined by Terry Bell. He's a Labour columnist. And Terry,
columnist, not
columnist. So thank you. Terry, but tell me, you've been attending the proceedings since yesterday. What are your impressions? What are the main themes that came out?
There's one theme that's come out totally clearly, and that is that everyone here seems to realize that the global economic crisis is far from over, that something has to be done, that the neoliberal paradigm, if you want to call it, the Washington consensus is finished, is over. That's what they're saying. However, not much has come in terms of actual reform, although the French delegate who spoke, Madame Royale, I think it was, made some really interesting comments about what France has done about reforming the situation in France. For example, they started out, the new President Hollande has cut his salary in half, and ministers have had their salaries cut. There's also a regulation about no ministerial head of department may earn more than 20% more than the lowest paid worker, etc., as well as super tax for the rich. These are all reforms which I think should be welcomed. Whether they're the answer or not, I certainly don't think so. But what you actually have is the situation where they're saying, and it was again highlighted by some of the points brought out by President Zuma, about the level of unemployment, the level of poverty, the level, for example, and that happened yesterday, was brought up by George Papandreou as well. There's not just a Greek crisis in Europe or a Spanish or an Italian or Irish crisis. It's a crisis of the international system. And they blame the banks, and one can see where the banks come into this, where we have a financial situation that keeps generating money for the sake of money. And we have a surplus in the world. No one has dealt, however, with the fundamental problem of the fact that we have surpluses and that we have a situation where, because of the microchip revolution, we have a lot of automation. We have a possibility of probably no full-time jobs in the old-fashioned anymore.
Yes, Terry, let's briefly just talk about the Socialist International, the movement itself. Just what is its popularity rate like? Is there an increase in its membership?
I don't know. Well, their membership has increased. It's a very strange organisation. If the ANC is a broad church, I don't know what you'd call the Socialist International. It's a giant broad church. I mean, it includes all sorts of bits and pieces of people from all over the world. You have the ANC involved. You have, and President Zuma referred to the former socialist countries as the Soviet Union. Well, I think most of the Socialist International members of Europe would oppose that, since they were opposed to what existed there as being socialism. You have countries, for example, who are in opposition around the world, who are actually quite revolutionary. You have others that are very conservative. You have the British Labour Party here, and one could say, well, they have towed very much a middle line. You have the Germans here, who have a background of, anyhow, I won't go into that.
Let's just hold it there, and to get a perspective from the African National Congress, we've got the Secretary General of the ANC, Mr. Kgalema Motlanthe, is joining us just now to give us a sense of the President's address this morning. Mr. Kgalema, welcome and thank you.
Thank you very much, Mkoke.
What is the main theme in the President's speech at this conference this morning?
You can only understand that speech if you have been following the Congress since yesterday, because this Congress in itself is about progressive forces looking for solutions to global crises and problems that are very complex. And at this point in time, we are not getting concrete alternatives. And that is the theme of the Congress. And the President made a contribution to the debate.
Yes, sir. Mr. Kgalema Motlanthe, we have unfortunately ran out of time, and we've got to take back to Johannesburg for at our head office to continue with the daily programs. Thank you very much for watching.